Hello, friends. Okay, so I'm a couple minutes late hopping on here, and I just want to share a quick tip for when you lose your phone in your own house, because that is why I'm a couple minutes late logging on. Just pulling up my notes here for our live today. So literally was like putting our crock pot meal together earlier, like got home from the store, got my Starbucks, got everything together. Crock pot meal is set. It's upstairs cooking. And I was like, I have to use a restroom before I hop on live. I need to brush my hair, make sure I'm good. So went and did that stuff, came back into my office, and I was like, oh my God, where is my phone? Couldn't find it for the life of me. So I stood in what would be kind of the center of our house, and I just screamed, "Hey Siri," really loud. And I heard my phone upstairs in our bedroom. So pro tip, if you ever lose your phone in your own house and you know it's in your house, that is how you find it when no one is home to call your phone for you. So we are talking today about foods to avoid for pelvic health. Okay, pelvic and core health, right? Because for those of you who don't know this, there's going to be a little bit of kind of pelvic floor information in this mini class, because you can't really understand why you should be avoiding some of these foods or some of these behaviors with food if you don't understand the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor is part of your core. Okay, I think a lot of times when we hear the word core, we think of a six-pack, right? We think of ab lines and muscles, and in reality, that's part of it, but your core is actually a lot more than that, okay? And your pelvic floor is part of it, all right? So I have my pelvis here. We're gonna talk a little bit about the role of the pelvic floor so that way we can understand why some of these foods and behaviors might not be awesome for your pelvic floor, okay? So pelvic floor, this is your pelvis, okay? These bones right here are what we would say like your hip bones, okay? If someone said, hey, touch your hip bone, you would do this, right? And you feel a little bony kind of prominence here. That's this, okay? Right in the front of your hip, okay? Now, your pelvic floor, if you were to walk your hands down like towards your booty and find your sits bones, which would be right about here, okay? Those sits bones, if you're a yogi, you've heard that term before, you can find like that bony prominence on your butt, right? If you're sitting, you want to walk your hands in towards your lady parts, towards your booty, okay? And you're going to feel that squishy tissue. That's your pelvic floor, okay? Now, as you can see again from this model here, diagram, this is not a diagram, this model, the pelvic floor is a sling of muscles that sits in the bottom of the pelvis. So again, this is that hip bone, so your pelvis sits here, pelvic floor is on the bottom, okay? This hole is the opening for the vagina and for your urine to come out, okay? So that's what this opening is for. This opening is for your rectum. Okay, so part of the role of the pelvic floor is to control letting out and keeping in tinkle and bowel movements. And that's why your nutrition plays such a big role. Now, on top of that, if your goal is to build pelvic floor strength, to regain integrity in your core, we do need to pay attention to things like calorie intake and protein and all of that good stuff that comes along with building that strength, building that muscle tone. But there's also some things, again, that we want to avoid to make sure we're not irritating our bladder, irritating our bowels, causing gas, constipation, things like that, to make sure that we're not causing those muscles to become overworked, okay? So let's start off talking about bloating, gas, and constipation. Let's start there and how those things affect the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor, again, it's that sling of muscles, bottom of the pelvis here. Now, when we have extra, like literally extra shit lying around, that is weight on the pelvic floor. That is literally extra weight. Bloating, gas, constipation, back up, right? It is literal weight on the pelvic floor. So I want you to imagine now, again, pelvic floor is a group of muscles. So let's relate it to another group of muscles. If you're comparing that to the bicep, right? If I were to say to you, hey, hang on to this 10-pound weight, we're gonna put an extra 10 pounds in your hands today, and I want you to stand here and just hold it like this all day long, 24 hours. Eventually your bicep would be like, no, I don't want to do that, right? Eventually that's what would happen. And it's no different when we have, again, literally extra shit in our system causing weight to kind of back up onto the pelvic floor. The pelvic floor's got to hold onto that, okay? Again, with constipation, gas, bloating, if we're also straining to go to the bathroom, that's going to cause problems for these muscles, because these muscles, again, hold in and let out urine and feces. That's one of their main roles. So if that muscle is constantly straining because you're constipated or your stool is really hard, that's going to cause a problem. Okay. So that's covering the constipation side. Let's cover the bladder side. Okay. It is very tempting when, if you're a mom, pregnant, 35 weeks here. If you're pregnant, you're a mom, you're sneeze peeing, it's really tempting to dehydrate yourself. If you pee every 30 minutes, because again, that's just what your pelvic floor can hold, it is really tempting to dehydrate yourself, okay? But when we are dehydrated, our bladder gets irritated, okay? When our bladder gets irritated, that means that inflammation is settling in the bladder. And that's not good, because that means our pelvic floor, again, those muscles, remember, just like the bicep, the pelvic floor is a muscle. That means that those muscles have to work overtime to get urine in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, right? They're just doing their job. And they're having to work extra hard because there's inflammation in your bladder. So while it is so tempting to dehydrate yourself, again, me, 35 weeks here, so tempting to dehydrate yourself, that causes bladder irritation, which leads to inflammation, which leads to making those pelvic floor muscles work harder than they have to, and contributes to weakening, okay? In addition, dehydration can also contribute to constipation. So tying that into what we just talked about a little while ago. Okay, so a couple foods you're gonna wanna avoid. So number one tip, something you're gonna wanna do is stay hydrated. Like first off, right? You guys might have seen this before. Some of you guys might have seen this in my stories. If you're a client, you know all about this thing because I talk about it all the time. This is my water bottle. I carry this guy with me everywhere I go. Also, not sponsored. This is not something I gain any monetary value from. This is just a product I really like. You can go on Amazon and type in time-stamped hydro jug. Okay, the reason I like this jug is because it has on it timestamps. So I can see right now I'm at about 10 a.m. level of water, okay? And right now it's noon in Texas, Houston, Texas, where I live. So I know I'm a little bit behind on my water intake for the day, all right? Again, that's a full gallon. They also have them in half-gallon sizes. I will say the full gallon is a little bit of a pain in the butt if you drive around or in the car commuting. A gallon of water weighs 8 pounds, so it's kind of heavy to be lugging around. But that thing is basically my second purse. It goes with me everywhere I go. If I get in the car to go somewhere and it's missing, I'm like, oh, what am I missing? I'm missing something. It's literally like another purse to me. And if you can have any container that's your thing, that makes it so much easier to stay hydrated. So number one tip is stay hydrated, okay? But these 4 foods or 3 foods, kind of one behavior, are gonna be things you're gonna wanna avoid for pelvic and core health, okay? Number 1 is coffee. I'm so sorry, but it's coffee, okay? And am I saying you can never have coffee? Coffee's the devil? No, your girl loves coffee. I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts. We love coffee. It's freezing over there. It's the only thing that makes us happy and brings us joy. I love coffee, okay? Limit your caffeine. And when you drive up to Starbucks and you're getting your coffee, right? Keep in mind, the venti is 20 ounces. That's more like 2.5, almost 3 cups of coffee, right? A cup of coffee is 8 ounces. So keep your coffee consumption to a minimum. If you are the type of person who likes to work out and you drink energy drinks or pre-workout, things like that, you're going to really want to pay attention to that caffeine intake, because caffeine can not only dehydrate you, but then that dehydration will also lead to inflammation and bladder irritation, again, causing problems with the pelvic floor. And again, back to that dehydration also can contribute to constipation, causing that literally extra shit to lie around, right? Some people are also really sensitive to coffee. It can cause bloating and gas and things like that. So you're going to want to pay attention to the way your body responds to coffee and caffeine, because again, that's going to be a major contributor to bladder irritation, constipation, digestive issues. All right. Something else I want to say about all these things that we're talking about, is that acidic foods are what tend to cause bladder issues. Okay, acidic foods. So number 2 on our list, so we have coffee is number 1. Number 2 is exactly what I said, acidic foods. So citrus foods, juices, things like that. Anything that's acidic is going to irritate the bladder. Okay, so again, does this mean you can never drink juice, or you shouldn't have oranges, or, don't squeeze the lemon onto your salmon or something? No, but pay attention to that, okay? Tomatoes are actually one of the most acidic fruits and vegetables out there. And I don't know, jury's out. Is a tomato a fruit or a vegetable? I don't know. You can go ahead and leave your opinion below. I don't know. I'm not going to argue about that. But tomatoes are actually one of the most acidic things that we eat, right? One of the most acidic fruits and vegetables. So you do have to pay attention to, okay, I had an orange in the morning, and then I had a glass of juice in the afternoon, and then I had tomatoes, with my dinner. And so if you're someone who, really gravitates towards those types of foods, if that's your palate, pay attention to that. That's something that can really irritate the bladder. Keep it to 1 serving a day. Okay. Number 3 is sparkling beverages. Hi, Olivia. Welcome. Sparkling beverages is number 3. Okay. And again, we go back to the concept of acidity and acidic foods, right? Carbonated beverages have carbon dioxide in them. And when we ingest that into the body, it breaks down into an acid. Okay. So while carbonated beverages are great, and I get a lot of questions, because again, you guys know I'm the water freak. Hi, this is my second purse. Okay. So a lot of people will ask, well, if I have a sparkling water, does that contribute to my water intake? And it can. I wouldn't say necessarily no to that question, but if I have a client or a person in front of me who's dealing with pelvic floor dysfunction, we're going to say no, because that carbonated beverage will again break down into an acid in the body and cause bladder irritation and inflammation. So we're going to want to avoid those. Again, does that mean you can never have a sparkling water? No, but you're going to want to limit them. And now that you know these 3 things, caffeine, acidic fruits and vegetables, and sparkling water, you can start to pay attention to like, oh wow, I've had 2 cups of coffee, I had a pre-workout, and I had an orange, and some tomatoes in my dinner, and I, now noticing I had 2 sparkling waters today. So it's like, do you have all of these things in a day? That's really easy to do. I'm guilty of that, right? Because these things are really common. So those are the 3 foods we're going to want to avoid. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is actually a behavior, okay? So in the body, when we're digesting food, right? We're taking food in. When food hits our stomach, it is hit with acid, okay? And that acid helps break down that food, okay? When we drink water with our meals, it dilutes that acid and can make digestion really difficult. So one behavior that we're gonna want to nix is drinking water 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after meals. Because again, go back to the beginning of this live, of this mini class, your digestion, if you're bloated, constipated, gassy, right? If you've got extra shit lying around, it's going to hang out here and cause that weight on the pelvic floor to cause some problems. Okay, add extra strain and contribute to pelvic floor weakening. So we want to be avoiding water within that hour window of our meals. Okay, so thank you guys so much for attending this mini class. This was a fun one. I love when I get to tie together 2 seemingly unrelated topics. So I love this topic. Thank you so much for attending. And I want to tell you guys, the notes that I'm referring to, that I have on my laptop that I was pulling up at the beginning of this mini class, are straight from my Strong Over Skinny Moms 21-day boot camp. Okay, this is the last day that you can get this boot camp on pre-sale pricing. Okay, tomorrow, when you wake up tomorrow, this boot camp is going to go from $297 to $397. Okay, so if you're interested in this bootcamp, if this topic interested you, if you're someone who has a goal to strengthen your core, strengthen your pelvic floor, this is where you want to be. Okay, this course is designed for pregnant women, right? And I've been talking about this so much in my stories. We have to start thinking of birth as an athletic event. And if your goal is to go into an athletic event and recover properly, you need to know about that recovery before you even go into the event. You wouldn't run a marathon and then after the marathon start a course about marathon recovery. That doesn't make any sense. You're in that stage, right? You have to learn how to recover while you're training. So this course is designed for pregnant women that want to enhance their postpartum recovery, that want to maintain their core strength throughout their pregnancy, minimize back pain, hip pain, low back pain, minimize leakage, all of that great stuff, okay? Number 2, this course is for postpartum women. So if you are, I always say once a mom, always a mom. So I actually consider, like, even if your kids are 20 years old, you're postpartum. Yeah, you're a mom. Congratulations. Welcome, right? So that is one of my sayings. And I really don't differentiate too much other than, in that initial postpartum period, we do have a lot of things in this course around hormonal health and breastfeeding and how that impacts our muscles' abilities to contract, how that impacts our mental health, our body image, all of those things that come into play postpartum that maybe some veteran moms who have older kiddos don't deal with. So if you're postpartum, again, the education from a core strengthening perspective, mental and emotional health perspective, and a hormonal perspective is, this is what you need. Okay. And veteran moms, again, once a mom, always a mom. I don't believe that just because your kids are 20, 25 years old, that you're good, you're fixed, you're healed, right? If you never received the core health, pelvic health education that was required for you to properly recover from your birth, then again, you're going to want to hop in on this course. Okay. I find that so many women allow that 8-week appointment to, it can be really discouraging when you go and you get the all clear and you don't feel all clear. And a lot of times women allow that to snowball and they don't work out for years and they let themselves go and they get caught up in being a mom and being with their kiddos and they don't prioritize themselves. And this course is going to help you bring it back home to you, reconnect with you, and do it in a way that is realistic for your life, right? This isn't some program that you're going to get from some, IG influencer who's going to, slam you in the gym spending hours a day, right? This course is meant to educate you so that you can find what works for you in your life and your family. Okay. So again, last day for the course, the link is in my bio if you want to hop in on that pre-sale pricing. And thank you guys so much. I have loved this live. I will see you soon.